Everybody ready? Impatience, impatience, impatience.
Patience is virtue.
Won't be any restoration for him.
Yeah. He needn't apply. Good morning. The right to vote and the right to hold office are fundamental foundations of our democracy. Yet in Kentucky, it's estimated that we deny those rights to over 180,000 adults. Why? Simply because at some point in their lives, they've been in trouble with the law. We ignore the fact that they have paid for their crimes and have served out their sentences. We don't even ask whether they've turned the corner on the past and are trying to move on to more productive lives. This disenfranchisement makes no sense. It makes no sense because it dilutes the energy of democracy, which functions only if all classes and categories of people have a voice, not just the privileged, powerful few. It makes no sense because it defeats a primary goal of our correction system, which is to rehabilitate those who have committed crimes and return them to contributing members of that society. It makes no sense because research shows that ex-inmates who vote are less likely to return to prison. It makes no sense because it violates the principles of fairness, prolonging the punishment of convicted felons long after they fulfill the requirements of their sentences. Kentucky is one of only 4 states that doesn't automatically restore these rights. Today, we're changing that. I'm signing an executive order instituting a new policy that automatically restores voting rights for felons, provided they meet 3 criteria. 1, they must have already fulfilled the terms of their sentences, whether that's prison time, probation, paying restitution, or whatever. 2, they must have no pending criminal cases, charges, or arrest. And 3, they must not have been convicted of violent crimes, sex-related crimes, bribery, or treason. Once officials from the Department of Corrections makes those determinations, felons who are currently incarcerated or under probation or parole supervision will receive a certificate of restoration of civil rights when they are released from custody. Individuals who have already left the system must fill out a restoration of rights form that they can get online or from any probation and parole office. Once correction officials verify that they meet the same 3 criteria, they also will have their voting rights restored automatically. Offenders who don't meet the criteria for automatic restoration or who have been convicted of federal crimes may still individually apply to have the governor restore their civil rights under the current restoration process. As I said, this new order excludes persons convicted of violent crimes or sex crimes, bribery, or treason. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, some 180,000 Kentuckians lack the right to vote due to a felony conviction, even though they've served out their sentences. In the last year in Kentucky, between 431 and 888 people a month were released by the criminal justice system after serving out their sentences. They would have been eligible for review under this new system, and now they are. The old system is unfair. It's counterproductive. We need to be smarter in our criminal justice system. Research shows that ex-felons who vote are less likely to commit new crimes and return to prison. That's because if you vote, you tend to be more engaged in society. You tend to have more respect for its laws and the common good. That's why in March 2008, shortly after I took office, I streamlined the process. The previous administration had made it harder for ex-felons to vote by creating a fee, requiring an essay, and requiring 3 character references, all of which had to be sent to the prosecutors. Consequently, less than 1,100 people had their rights restored during my predecessor's 4 years. After I eliminated those stringent requirements to make Kentucky more like other states, we've restored the rights of more than 8,400 people. I've consistently supported legislative efforts to permit a constitutional referendum on restoration of rights. And truth be told, I wanted to allow that process to play out. But those efforts have failed time and time again. I strongly encourage the legislature to take action on this issue as soon as possible and take it out of any future governor's hands and make this process automatic for everyone through an amendment to Kentucky's Constitution. In the meantime, I am doing this myself through executive order. Congratulations to many of the tens of thousands of people who will soon become engaged members of society once again. Thank you. And now let me introduce a person who has fought for this probably as hard as anyone in our state. Former Representative Jesse Crenshaw, for years, has been sponsoring the legislation for a constitutional amendment to allow this very thing to occur on an automatic basis. And while we were never able to push that over the line to this point, he's been a champion of this for his entire legislative career. Jesse, please come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to be here today. Today is a wonderful day for all Kentuckians. What we are looking at, and I want to, before I go any further, thank Governor Beshear. I really want to thank him because this is something that is so badly needed. What he has done and the steps that he is taking is the best possible example of democracy in action. It is democracy at its very best. If you asked individuals to work hard, pay taxes, be good citizens, it is only fair that they should be able to do what other citizens do. It is a part of democracy in the sense that each of us should take part in the governance of ourselves. And if you cannot vote, you cannot vote for the person who would help govern you. I remember vividly, Governor, it's been so long I can't really say how many years ago it's been, but Judge Gary Payne, who has retired, so you know how long ago it would have been, he's served a full years of being a judge, district judge, and then a circuit judge. And I can remember, and Governor, you know where Bluegrass Aspendale Precinct is. I was there and I was offering to two young men one of Judge Payne's brochures. And young fellow looked at the brochure and he says, "Oh, Judge Payne is an excellent judge. He is a good judge. He sent me to the penitentiary, but he was so fair. He treated me so fairly that if I could vote, I would vote for him." So what we have today, and I won't take much time, is democracy at its best, treatment of fairness, and it is only fair that all those citizens who are out there paying taxes, working every day, doing all of the things that everyone else is doing, except for the fact that they can't take part in their own governance. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for listening to me. Governor, again, I thank you for what you've done, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Now let's hear from Representative Darrell Owens, another person who has championed this cause for years.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. I want to thank the Governor for this piece of this executive order today. And I want to thank Representative Jesse Crenshaw for his untiring efforts. I don't know if many of you know the history of this, but Jesse has been attempting this for about 12 years. At least. Something else you may not have known, it was not until I became chairman of the Election and Constitutional Committee that he got a vote on it. Up to that point, he never got a committee vote on his piece of legislation. I just want to say one thing, and it's the Supreme Crusader for Voting Rights, Dr. Martin Luther King. So long as I do not firmly and irrevocably possess the right to vote, I do not possess myself. I cannot make up my mind. It is made up for me. I cannot live as a democratic citizen observing the laws that I have helped to enact. I can only submit to the edicts of others. With that, we are now restoring the right for over 100,000 folks to exercise their right and become part of the democratic process, which is so vital to our government. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, any questions? Adam.
What was the process before this executive order? Was there any way for these felons to regain their right to vote, or they have to apply something?
The process that we've utilized up till now, that we put in place, I believe, in 2008, was an application process, which is the way it's always been. But we eliminated a lot of the stringent requirements, and we would review each case. We would send, obviously, the application through the correction system and to the prosecutors in the county where the conviction occurred, and then we individually then took action on every application. If they fell in the categories that we're affecting today, that is nonviolent, non-sexual crimes, we would restore those rights. But everyone had to apply. And the way this is going to be set up is that for folks that are incarcerated now, as they come out and as they complete all of the requirements, including their probation, their parole, restitution, whatever, then they will automatically receive a certificate of civil rights that will allow them to go register to vote. So it will be a much more automatic process, and those that are already out of the system, all they'll have to do is file an application with corrections, not with the governor's office, with corrections. Corrections is only going to check for those three things, what type of crime was it, and assuming that it falls into the nonviolent, non-sexual category, have they served out their sentence? Have they paid their restitution? And then the third thing is, have you committed another crime, or is something else pending right now? And assuming that all of those criteria are met, they will be mailed a certificate that they can then take down and register to vote.
We didn't have any legislation come out of the 2015 session. Why now?
I was hopeful that our legislature would step up and put this question on the ballot, because that's the only way that it will be permanently established that we will have an automatic process. All but 4 states, or we're one of 4 states in the country where this is not already automatic. And I think Kentucky ought to join the rest of those states and have it automatic on a permanent basis. But after the last legislative session, when we were unable to get that done, we went back to the drawing board, went back to work. Honestly, I didn't do it during the campaign season because I felt like it might become a political issue for both sides, and I didn't want that to happen. This is not anything to do with particular campaigns. This has to do with a basic right that every citizen ought to have, and that's the right to vote.
Do
you feel comfortable, because there will be a flood of people who want to apply as of today, that corrections is prepared, funded, and ready to handle the flood of people who will begin trying to file today?
Corrections is prepared and ready to go. That's why we've taken some time this year after the session to put all this together, get all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted. The only delay at all for someone who is out of the system now and sending an application is in, we can quickly check to see if they've served out their sentence and they're off of probation, parole, paid their restitution. We can quickly see what kind of crime it was and if it falls into the proper category. The only delay is we're going to have to go to the prosecutor to find out if there are any pending charges. And once we find out if there are any pending charges or other convictions that are just now coming on, once we clear that, then they will automatically receive a certificate in the mail.
Are you concerned at all about that system? Because if someone, say, a few years ago committed a crime in one county, they could have a crime facing them in another county or across state lines. Are you concerned that people will fall through and get their rights returned to them that shouldn't be?
We're going to have a very thorough system of checks so that only the folks that qualify will get their civil rights restored.
Governor, do you have constitutional authority to do this?
Yes, I certainly do. I have authority right now to do it any way I want to, and only the governor does have that authority in Kentucky right now.
Have you had a chance to speak with Governor-elect Bevin and let him know what your actions were and what was his response, and does he plan on honoring this executive order once he takes office?
We communicated our plan to his new general counsel who is coming in this morning, and you'd need to get with them in terms of any response.
Governor, of the 181,000 that you mentioned, are all of those eligible to have their rights restored? Does that number include some that have been convicted of violent crimes?
That is an estimate that was put together by the Brennan Center for Justice, and so that number could vary to some degree, but I think it's safe to say that there's over 100,000 people out here right now who will fit all three of these criteria and will be eligible to get their voting rights restored.
I think one of the qualifications was you can get it restored unless you have some charges pending.
Right.
What does that matter if you're served your time, but you don't have another conviction, but you have another charge? Why would that prevent you from having your rights restored?
Well, part of what we're doing by this automatic restoration is recognizing the efforts of people who have gone through the system and are working hard to become contributing members of society again. And so if there is a charge pending right now, that obviously brings that into question to some degree. And so we will then wait to see what happens with that charge. If it's dismissed, then that person then is eligible. I would also add that anybody out there, even though they don't fall within carry a firearm, my legal staff informs me that the only way that that right can be restored is by a full pardon under Kentucky's Constitution. And this obviously is not a full pardon. These are what they sometimes call partial pardons. I call it restoration of certain civil rights, and I think that's the way most people refer to it. And obviously, I'm not pardoning all of these people, and so that right it doesn't qualify.
Would you consider doing that, the full pardon versus this?
No, I've got under consideration a lot of pardon applications right now that have been made during the 8 years I've been governor, but this is not the full pardon process. This is a restoration of rights process. There is a big distinction there.
And one more, I'm sorry, just to follow up on Lawrence's Constitution says that if you are convicted, you lose your right to vote. But I guess you're saying the Constitution also gives the governor the authority to overrule that?
Well, the Constitution gives Kentucky's governor the authority to restore civil rights or to fully pardon an individual of crimes.
Governor, is there any financial cost to this? Has corrections had to hire more people to handle potential applications?
You want to?
We've been, the Department of Corrections has been preparing for months for this possibility. And you have to understand, one of the big things corrections does is keep records on people and keep track of people. So for the most part, this due diligence will fold into some of the other data and information that we generally keep. We're putting it in a different order. We're just like we had done with other issues, whether it's DNA or anything. Every time that we have to make a change in these these record-keeping process and these databases, we'll do that and we'll keep track. We'll do due diligence. There may be a 45 to 60-day process for individuals, particularly those who are not in custody now, who have served out, that we have to do the due diligence, make sure that they meet all the criteria. Hopefully, it won't add to the expense. Actually, and if we can keep more people from coming back, it will reduce expense.
I also would point out, obviously, Lieutenant Governor Crit Llewellyn is here, Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes is here, and they've both been very supportive of this whole approach and this issue of restoring rights to vote to folks who have served their time and have fulfilled their sentences and want to become contributing members of society again. You also see around us various members of the legislature. All of these folks up here have been strong advocates for the kind of legislation that I'm basically implementing by executive order today. And I'm sure they're going to continue to work hard to try to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot that will make this a permanent process so that folks can automatically get their rights restored under these circumstances.
So this will go onto the ballot?
No, this doesn't go on the ballot. They would have to pass a constitutional amendment and put that on the ballot. Right now, this is being done by executive order, which I have the authority to do. But governors can issue executive orders undoing executive orders also. And so, my hope is that the legislature will pass and put on the ballot a constitutional amendment that, if adopted by the people of this state, will make this system permanent, and then no governor can change it. It will be in our Constitution, and it will automatically restore voting rights to folks who deserve it.
Have you spoken with Attorney General Conway about this, and where is he on this?
We haven't had a conversation with Attorney General Conway on this that I know of.
Do you know what the other three states are? You said Kentucky was one of four.
Virginia, Florida, and Iowa, I believe.
Florida, Iowa, and Virginia. Anybody else? Way back there.
Way back. I have absolutely no idea how many people, but part of it is paying restitution. Is there any consideration for some of those who have restitution, financial, that they can never pay in their lifetime? I only know of one person. I'm asking if anybody knows of a number.
We don't know of a number on that, but we did feel that it was fair to require people to serve out and to fulfill all the terms of their sentence before we would have this be automatic. Even people who haven't paid their restitution, though, are still eligible to apply to the governor's office under the process that we've had in place up to this time, and it will stay in place for anyone who doesn't fall within this automatic, the definitions here that make it automatic for them.
How fast are people coming out of the system who would be eligible for this?
Excuse me, though. You have a couple of generic categories of individuals. You have one who are currently incarcerated, serving their time now, who would be coming up to complete their sentences. As they are processing out of our institutions, we'll in their art processing, we'll do all the due diligence necessary. If they're eligible that day, we'll give it to them on their way out the door. Then you have those who have completed their probation or parole and have final discharges. We'll have to reach out to them. They'll have to come back in. That's where that due diligence comes in, to see if they have in fact, met all the criteria necessary upon their final discharge. Then we can get certificates to them. And then there are the remainder who, are still in some sort of supervision. But now that this will be in effect, part of our processing of those individuals will be to keep in mind that this is coming up as we get ready to process them out altogether. So, the time period for each group depends on where you are right now. Are you in? Are you under current supervision? And how much due diligence is necessary to ensure that you meet the criteria the governor stated?
So are we talking about 10 people a day, 100 people a day, 1,000 people a day? Do you have any sort of?
I can't give you, data on that. Hopefully, thanks to your efforts and those, there'll be a lot of word of mouth to get out for people who have already completed all their sentences, and then we'll start to review each and every one who is out processing as it goes on. We process thousands of individuals a month in the Department of Corrections.
Let me give you a number that was in my remarks, and I'll go back and find it here. That will give you at least a kind of a feel for what you're asking. Last year in Kentucky, between 431 and 888 people a month were released by the criminal justice system after serving out their sentences. Now, those folks would have been eligible to participate in this review as they were coming out. All of them might not qualify because some of them are going to be on parole, but they would all they would have been reviewed each and every month. So that gives you a little bit of a feel about how many are coming out any particular month.
Anybody else?
Governor Beshear, is this application already online somewhere? How do we get to it? I don't want to have to track down parole officers that I don't have anymore.
Sure.
It'll be on the corrections website.
It's going to be on the corrections website.
When's that?
And do we know, is it up yet?
Today, tomorrow?
It'll be up. It'll be up today.
Be up today. Okay. Oh, one more.
Because some people who will be watching this, I know you have a lot of supporters in this room, will not be keen on this idea. They will see those victims of a crime may see this as the people who committed these crimes knew that they may lose their right to vote if they committed a felony. And they see this as taking away one of those punishments. What do you say those who don't smile upon this decision today?
I would say that all of our society will be better off if we actively work to help rehabilitate those who've made a mistake. And the more we do that, the more the entire society will benefit. If we can integrate more of our folks that have made a mistake back into society to be productive citizens, we all benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
You got a photo opportunity.